I walked into my house that Saturday afternoon, something felt off. The curtains were drawn in a way I never left them. There was the faint scent of cinnamon toast in the air, something I hadn't made. And then I heard it, the sound of a child laughing, high-pitched, chaotic, followed by the unmistakable thud of something heavy crashing onto my hardwood floor. I froze. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, my first home, the house I had scraped together every cent by, the one thing that was mine. And yet, standing in the doorway, keys still dangling from my hand, I realized someone had moved in. Not just anyone. My sister, her husband, and their 3 kids. And I hadn't invited them. Hi, Reddit. My name's Rachel Monroe. I'm 33, single, and a back-end software developer living in Spokane, Washington. Until recently, I thought I'd finally carved out a quiet little life for myself. Nothing fancy but peaceful. After a childhood of being the responsible one, the quiet one, and the one who got overlooked in favor of my golden child older sister, I figured the least I could do was buy a place of my own without anyone's interference. And I mean that literally. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my sister. I didn't even tell my coworkers, except for one, and she didn't mean any harm. But that's the thing with people who don't mean any harm. They always end up causing the most damage. So when I bought this house, a little 2-bedroom cottage tucked between pine trees on the edge of town, I did it for one reason, to finally breathe without someone standing on my chest. But as I stood in the entryway, listening to my niece yell from the kitchen about running out of juice boxes, I realized I should have changed the locks the second I closed on the house, because my family had never respected boundaries before, and they weren't about to start now. Heather is 3 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, she was the sun our family orbited around. Blonde, bubbly, and charming in the effortless way that made teachers adore her and strangers hand her candy at the grocery store. Heather could do no wrong. Me, I was the quiet one, the clever girl, according to my teachers, the one who always finished homework early, never made a fuss, and got praised for being low maintenance, which in our family was code for we don't have to try with her. Every birthday made that painfully clear. Heather had bounce houses, themed cakes, and gift bags for 20 friends. One year, they even rented a pony. My birthdays, a last-minute frozen pizza, a lopsided sheet cake from the supermarket bakery, and a "sorry, honey, we've just been so busy this month." Christmases were worse. Heather got the deluxe Barbie dream house with working elevators and lights. I got a second-hand knockoff with stickers already peeling and a plastic door that wouldn't close. I remember sitting there on the carpet, clutching the broken elevator shaft, pretending I didn't care because that's what was expected of me. "You're the strong one, Rachel," Mom would say, sipping her coffee. "You don't need all that fancy stuff." But Heather's needs, they were sacred. Once, I asked why Heather got a new winter coat while mine was a hand-me-down from our cousin Megan. Mom's response was simple. Heather gets cold more easily. That's when I stopped asking questions. It wasn't just material things. It was everything. Heather came home crying from school. The entire family stopped to console her. I brought home a perfect report card. "Good job, sweetie. Can you help set the table?" Even back then, I knew something was off. But I also knew that being the good one meant not complaining, not making waves, just performing, producing, and staying out of the way. The divide sharpened in high school. Heather coasted through with a 3.2 GPA and 3 different boyfriends, while I buried myself in AP classes, robotics club, and part-time jobs. I got into a solid state university on my own merit without help. I thought that might finally earn me something, a little recognition, a little fairness. But when I mentioned that I'd live at home to save money on housing, Mom looked at me like I was a stranger. "If you're staying here, you'll have to contribute," she said flatly. Heather got support because she needed it. You'll figure it out." So while Heather went to her dream school, fully funded by her parents, I was 18 and working nights at a local bookstore, paying rent to live in my childhood bedroom. Sometimes I'd hear Heather call from her dorm, complaining about how the cafeteria's vegan options were subpar. I'd be sitting in our kitchen, eating dollar store ramen on a chipped plate, just trying to keep the lights on. I moved out the moment I could afford it. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't slam any doors or make speeches. I just packed my few belongings, loaded up my 12-year-old Honda, and left without fanfare. No one begged me to stay. No one even offered to help carry a box. I remember sitting in that tiny apartment, 450 square feet, creaky floors, windows that barely sealed. But it was mine. No one barged in. No one asked me to pick up someone else's slack. For the first time in my life, I could hear myself think. I worked. A lot. My first job out of college wasn't glamorous. Entry-level QA for a logistics software firm. The hours were long, the pay was okay, but the independence, that was everything. I started saving immediately. Cut every corner I could. No dining out. No vacations. My wardrobe rotated between 5 thrifted sweaters and a single pair of work flats that I resold twice. Meanwhile, Heather was building her fairy tale. She got married a year after I moved out. A backyard wedding at some rented vineyard. My parents paid for all of it, of course. I was maid of honor, not by choice but by obligation. I still remember Mom's voice when I hesitated. Don't be selfish, Rachel. It's your sister's day. Heather's husband, Brian, was charming in that vague, unemployed way. He always had a business idea in the works, always between roles. Always talking a big game about tech startups and passive income. But somehow, the bills never got paid on time unless my parents stepped in. Then came the kids. Lily first, then Ethan, then Max. 3 beautiful little hurricanes who tore through every room they entered. I love them. I really do. But they became a convenient excuse for Heather to opt out of everything. Responsibility, employment, budgeting, you name it. My parents picked up the slack without question. Paid for daycare. Bought a new car when theirs broke down. Took the kids every weekend so Heather could recharge. And through it all, no one asked about me. I got promoted. Twice. I started working remotely, picked up consulting gigs, began to build a reputation in my field. Quietly, without celebration. When I earned an industry award last year, I posted about it once on LinkedIn. Mom commented, "Proud of both my girls." That was it. No call, no flowers, no dinner invitation. Heather got a 3.2 GPA in college and had a catered graduation party with a custom cake. I graduated with a 3.9 and we ordered takeout lasagna in silence. The message was clear. Heather was the center. I was the scaffolding. And scaffolding doesn't get celebrated. It just holds everyone else up. I didn't tell anyone I was house hunting, not because it was some grand secret, but because I knew how my family operated. If I told them, even casually, that I was thinking about buying a home, it would become a group project overnight. My mother would start picking out paint swatches. Heather would suggest which school district would be best for the kids. And somehow, I'd end up footing the bill for someone else's dream. So I kept quiet. For nearly a year, I searched. I browsed listings after work. I went to open houses on weekends. I ran the numbers late at night, spreadsheet after spreadsheet. I lived leaner than ever. Every dollar that didn't go to rent or groceries went into my down payment fund. And then I found it. A little 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of town, nestled among tall pines with a sloping gravel driveway and a wraparound porch that caught the morning sun. It was modest, not flashy, but it felt like something I'd built with my own hands. I remember standing in the empty living room the first time I saw it, my boots tracking snow onto the wood floors, and thinking, this is it, this is mine. I made an offer that same day. It was accepted 3 days later. I closed a month after that, and I didn't tell a soul. I moved in over a weekend with the help of 2 friends from work. No family, no announcements, no Facebook posts. I wanted to live in the silence of something I'd earned entirely on my own. But silence is a luxury my family doesn't allow for long. About a week after I'd moved in, I got a call from my mom. Her tone was overly cheerful, the kind of voice she uses when she already knows something and is waiting to pounce. "Hi, sweetheart. How's everything going?" I kept it vague. "Good. Work's busy. Same old." She paused, then said, "Heather told me you've been looking at houses. Why didn't you tell us?" My stomach dropped. Turns out the one person I had told, Lisa, a coworker I barely knew, had mentioned it in passing to her neighbor, who just happened to be best friends with Heather. Small town. Big mouth. I lied. "Oh, I'm just browsing. Nothing serious." But it was too late. That night, I got a text from Heather with a Zillow link. This would be perfect. For bedrooms, great schools, and a huge backyard for the kids. I stared at my phone. My family had just found out I was thinking about buying a house, and already they were planning to move into it. Over the next few days, my phone turned into a war zone. Texts, emails, even voicemails. Who still leaves voicemails? Each one more presumptuous than the last. My mother sent a list of non-negotiables she thought I should look for in a home. Minimum 4 bedrooms, at least 2 baths, fenced backyard, bonus room for the kids' play area. Heather followed up with Pinterest boards of decor ideas. Neutral tones, so everyone feels welcome. Everyone. At no point did anyone ask what I wanted. Not once. It became obvious this wasn't about me buying a home. This was about them finding a new headquarters, and I was just the funding source. One message from Heather stuck in my mind like a splinter. It read, "Rachel, this place in Coeur d'Alene would be ideal. It's just 15 minutes from our apartment. Has a finished basement Brian could turn into a home office, and it's close to Lily's dance studio. You should book a viewing." You should book a viewing. Like I was her real estate agent. Another time, Mom sent me a voice note saying, "Sweetheart, imagine the holidays. Everyone under one roof, your father and I staying in the guest suite, the grandkids running around. This is the kind of home memories are made in." I hadn't even unpacked my own boxes yet. I was still figuring out how to hang curtain rods and which switch controlled which light. But my family had already turned my blank canvas into their vision board. The most surreal part? They didn't seem to notice I wasn't responding. I stopped replying to the group chat. I muted their messages. I declined calls. And still the links came. The demands continued. I was a ghost. But they didn't need me to exist just to pay. That's when it hit me. They never saw me as a person with a life of her own. I was a utility, a means to an end, the dependable one, the stable one, the one who could be counted on to give and give and give. And even though I had already bought my house, they were determined to insert themselves into every corner of it. Every empty room, every square foot of space, they'd already claimed it in their minds. So I started taking a different route. I ignored every house suggestion. I avoided Heather's neighborhood completely when driving. I told no one where my house was, not even Lisa, because clearly trust had an expiration date, and in my family it had long since passed. The invitation came through Mom like always. "We're doing dinner this Saturday," she said over the phone, her voice chipper like nothing had been happening. "Nothing fancy, just family. You're coming, right?" For a split second, I considered saying no. I could already imagine the subtext. The house talk, the loaded questions, the trap. But then something inside me shifted. I'd been silent for too long, hiding, avoiding, letting them speak about me without ever speaking to them. Maybe it was time to stop playing defense. "Sure," I said. "I'll be there." I arrived at exactly 6 p.m. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic, and the chaos had already begun. Lily and Ethan were tearing through the living room. Max was crying in the hallway, and Brian was half asleep on the couch with football on full blast. Mom popped her head out from the kitchen, apron on, holding a ladle. "Oh, good, you're on time for once," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We sat down around the old oak dining table. Me, Mom, Dad, Heather, Brian, and the kids, plates full of overcooked lasagna and forced civility. For a moment, things were almost normal, until Mom cleared her throat and placed a folder on the table. Rachel, she said sweetly, we've been doing some research, and we think we found the perfect house for you. I blinked. Sorry, what? Heather leaned forward, excited. It's gorgeous. Just outside Coeur d'Alene. 5 bedrooms, huge backyard, and it's zoned for Lily's school. Mom nodded. There's even a finished basement. Brian could finally have a space for his projects. And there's a sunroom, perfect for you to work from home. They were glowing, like they'd already moved in. I put my fork down. Actually, I said quietly, I already bought a house. Silence. It hit like a brick wall. Even the kids stopped talking. What? Heather said, her voice tight. I closed 3 weeks ago. It's a 2-bedroom cottage. It's not near here, and it's just for me. Heather looked like I had slapped her. But where are we supposed to go? You're not, I said. This isn't about you. Mom's expression darkened. Rachel, how could you make such a huge decision without us? We've been helping you plan. No, I said, keeping my voice even. You've been helping yourselves plan. You never asked me what I wanted. You just assumed I'd build my life around everyone else's. Heather's voice cracked. This isn't fair. You know how tight our apartment is. We were counting on that space. I didn't ask you to, I said. I'm done being counted on for things I never offered. Dad slammed his hand on the table. Family is supposed to sacrifice for each other. I stood up slowly. I've sacrificed enough. And then I walked out. The first message came before I even made it home. It was from Heather, just a photo. Lily and Ethan sitting cross-legged on their bunk bed, surrounded by stuffed animals and board games. Max was curled up in the corner, holding a toy car to his chest. The caption read, "They were so excited to finally have their own rooms. I don't know how to tell them." I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? Sorry your fantasy house got canceled because I refused to bankroll it. A few minutes later, my phone pinged again. Then again. And again. Texts from Mom. I didn't sleep at all last night. Heather is devastated. We were only trying to help you feel included. You've changed, Rachel. This isn't the daughter I raised. I turned off my phone and tossed it into the kitchen drawer. But turning it off didn't make them stop. The next morning, I woke up to 3 voicemails from Dad. The first one was 5 minutes of him ranting about selfishness and loyalty. The second was quieter, just him sighing and saying, I hope you're happy. The third, I didn't even listen to. That same day, Aunt Marlene, whom I hadn't spoken to in almost a decade, called me out of the blue. She started off polite, then pivoted. Rachel, I don't know what's going on over there, but your mother is heartbroken. Heather has 3 kids to take care of. Can't you find it in your heart to support your family? The word support hung in the air like a loaded gun. I hung up without answering. Then came the Facebook posts. Heather posted a picture of Lily doing homework on the floor with a caption, "All they want is a little space to grow." But I guess space is too much to ask from some people. The comments were exactly what you'd expect. You're an amazing mom. Shame on whoever's letting you down. Family should be there for each other. They didn't tag me, but they didn't have to. It was a public performance, and I was cast as the villain. I wanted to scream, to post screenshots, to explain everything, but I didn't, because no matter how loud the lies got, I refused to beg for permission to have boundaries. But the final blow? Mom posted a picture of my house, with the caption, "It's so sad when people forget where they came from." That's when I knew this wasn't just guilt anymore. It was war. It was a Saturday morning. Cold, quiet, nothing unusual. I had errands to run, groceries, post office, a quick stop at Target. I remember buying a set of lavender-scented candles and thinking how nice it would be to light them that night, put on a movie, and finally, have a peaceful evening to myself. When I pulled into the driveway 2 hours later, something felt wrong. Heather's SUV was parked at the curb. My chest tightened. I walked up to the door, keys already clenched in my fist, trying to come up with any possible reason she'd be there. Maybe she was dropping something off. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe. But the moment I stepped inside, the smell of microwave popcorn and baby wipes hit me like a slap. Toys were scattered across the living room floor. Ethan's sneakers sat beside my coffee table. The TV was blaring an episode of some cartoon I didn't recognize. And in the kitchen, Brian was rummaging through my fridge like it was his. And then I saw Heather. She was in the sunroom, rearranging my furniture. My armchair had been pushed against the window, and she was dragging a side table toward it with a look of complete ownership on her face. "What the hell is going on?" I asked. She looked up, casual as ever. "Oh, hey. We figured it'd be easier to just move in while you were out. Mom gave us the key. Hope that's okay." I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mom had given them the spare key. The one she held briefly during her peace-offering visit. The one I left, naively on the kitchen hook. Heather gestured toward the hallway. "The kids already picked their rooms. Max wants the one with the little window. It's so cute." Brian, not even looking up, added, "We'll help cover groceries. I mean, you're just one person, right? This house makes way more sense for us." I felt a pressure in my skull that I couldn't quite place. A ringing. A violation. This wasn't just boundary crossing. This was a break-in. A takeover. And they were smiling through it. "Get out," I said, voice low. Heather blinked, almost amused. "Rachel, don't be dramatic. We're family." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police." Brian finally looked up, offended. "Seriously? You'd call the cops on your own sister." "Watch me," I said, dialing. When the dispatcher answered, I gave my address and told them, calmly, that unauthorized individuals were occupying my home, that they refused to leave, that I had not given them permission. 10 minutes later, 2 officers pulled into the driveway. It was the first time in years. I felt like someone was on my side. The officers were calm but firm. They asked Heather and Brian to explain why they were in the house. Heather gestured toward the kids like they were some kind of human shield. Brian muttered about being family and just needing a little space. The officers didn't care. "This is private property," one of them said, voice clipped. "You weren't invited, you weren't given legal access, and you're being asked to leave. Now." Heather started to cry. Real dramatic sobs. Brian scoffed and grabbed a half-eaten sandwich from the counter, like this was all just a minor inconvenience. I stood in the corner of the room and said nothing. I didn't need to. They were finally seeing the consequences of entitlement. They left 20 minutes later, carrying plastic bags of snacks they had raided from my pantry, and looking more annoyed than ashamed. Heather didn't say goodbye. She just glared at me like I had ruined her life. The officer turned to me at the door. "Do you want to press charges?" I paused. Every part of me wanted to say yes, to make them pay, but what I wanted more was peace. "Not if they stay away," I said, "but if they come back, I won't hesitate." He nodded. "We'll file a report. If it happens again, call us immediately." The moment the door clicked shut behind them, I locked it. Then I slid down the wall and just sat on the floor, staring at the ceiling, breathing. My house no longer felt like home. It felt breached, defiled, like every quiet moment I'd earned had been taken and dirted. The next morning, I called a locksmith, changed all the locks, installed cameras at every entrance, ordered a ring system and a motion detector for the backyard. Then I called my lawyer. Yes, I have one. I've done enough freelance contracts to know that sometimes silence isn't protection, paper is. Within 48 hours, she had drafted a cease and desist letter addressed to Heather, Brian, and my mother. It was clear, factual, and cold as ice. It outlined the incident, cited trespassing law, and stated unequivocally that if they contacted me again in any form or attempted to access my property, I would pursue criminal and civil action. The letters were delivered by courier. No more emotional texts. No more guilt-tripping voicemails. No more Facebook shade. Just a legal boundary written in ink. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. I had something stronger than guilt on my side now. I had the law. A few days passed. Silence never felt so loud. No calls. No texts. No new innocent photos of the kids. My Facebook feed was still a mess of passive-aggressive pity posts, but I'd already blocked half my extended family. I adjusted my privacy settings, scrubbed my contact info from anything public. I wasn't just building a wall around my home. I was building one around my peace. Then, one afternoon, as I was trying to repot a wilting lavender plant on my porch, I saw her, my mother, standing at the gate with a store-bought pie in her hands, dressed like she was on her way to Sunday brunch. She gave me the same look she always did when she wanted something, a soft, theatrical half-smile that said, "Let's pretend none of this happened." She lifted the pie and said, "Apple, your favorite." My favorite is cherry. She's never remembered. I didn't say anything, just stared. "I just wanted to see how you were doing," she continued, eyes scanning the house behind me. "You've done such a lovely job with the place. Really, it suits you." Her voice was syrupy. Her gaze wasn't. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. She tried again. "I think things got a little out of hand, but we're family, Rachel. We say things we don't mean. I know Heather crossed a line, but can't we start fresh? Maybe have a little dinner? Bring the kids by. They'd love to see where their auntie lives." There it was, the suggestion masked as an invitation, the wedge ready to be driven in again. I looked her in the eye and said calmly, "No," her smile faltered. "You don't mean that." "I do. Rachel, come on. I raised you better than this." "No," I said again. "You raised me to put everyone else first. And I'm done." I turned, walked back inside, and locked the door behind me. She didn't knock again. That night, I lit one of the lavender candles I bought on the day of the break-in. I sat on my porch, wrapped in a blanket, the air cool and quiet. For the first time in years, there was no one asking, needing, demanding. Just me, and the house I chose. For a long time, I thought boundaries made me selfish. That saying no made me cruel. That choosing solitude over sacrifice made me a bad daughter, a bad sister, a bad person. Now I know boundaries are a declaration, a line in the sand that says I matter too. I don't know what they'll try next. Maybe nothing, maybe everything. But I do know this, they can plan whatever they want. But this house, this life, it's not theirs to walk into anymore.